Namaskara. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special evening with Peter Zumthor in conversation with Bijoy Ramachandran. This is Peter's very first visit to India, his very first visit to Bengaluru, and we're beyond thrilled to have him here. I want to do a quick survey in the audience. Raise your hand if you're an architect. Okay. Raise your hand if you're an architecture student. Very nice. Raise your hand if you're not an architect, but you work with architects. Raise your hand if you've traveled more than 3 hours to be here today. And keep your hand up if you come from out of state. And keep it up if you come from outside of the country. Wow. Well, thank you all for being here. I want to do a round of acknowledgements to begin with. Last year, Switzerland and India celebrated 75 years of unwavering and unalterable friendship. And we have partnered with all of these wonderful organizations that you see on the slide to raise funds to do 75 activities over the course of 2 years to celebrate these 75 years of friendship. So we are here tonight because these organizations enabled us to invite Peter Zumthor to India. And he's now on a tour which started in New Delhi, took him to Chandigarh, he's now in Bengaluru, and will soon head to Mumbai. I also want to acknowledge and give a big shout out to the entire team at Swissnex in India. We're not in the business of producing these kinds of events. So big round of applause, many of them sitting here. Swissnex in India. We are a diplomatic anomaly, and I have the privilege of leading one of the 6 Swiss technology consulates. What are we all about? We strive to accelerate positive transformations at the frontiers of knowledge. And we are ambitious. And the image that you see on the slide is an attempt at visually representing what our ambition is. We want Switzerland and India's collaboration to grow, and to grow substantially over the coming years. To do that, we have launched what we call the Indo-Swiss Innovation Platform, and this is a visual representation of it. In the background, we tried to give a visual nudge to the Large Hadron Collider at the CERN, a platform for international collaboration. We have overimposed a big number, 0, an Indian contribution to our collective knowledge dating back many centuries, but also a very contemporary one, looking at India's role in solving Y2K, looking at India's pioneering role in developing digital public infrastructure. And then there are a lot of beams that are pointing in a common direction. These are meant to visually represent the vibrancy of collaboration that we want to engineer. And who knows that this visit may seed one more of these beams. If you want to know more about what it is that we do, I would encourage you all to take out your phones now and silence them, and then scan the QR code up here to sign up for our monthly newsletter, Anomaly. Heads up, the March edition will have a very exclusive rendezvous with Peter Zumthor, sharing some insights on his visit to India. Peter Zumthor in conversation with Bijoy Ramachandran. Peter Zumthor, the architect who speaks with stones, a modern-day alchemist who converses with materials to create spaces that speak to one's whole being. I will leave it at that, and I will now invite Peter and Bijoy to come up on stage and have a wonderful conversation. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Jonas, Swiss Next, and the Swiss Consulate for bringing Peter Zumthor to India. I welcome him and Hannele Gronlund, the Finnish architect and exhibition designer, to India and our home, Bangalore. A friend of ours said that this evening's event felt like the opening night of a big Bollywood blockbuster. Peter's work and writings find a particular resonance in India. His ideas of work predicated on place, memory, materiality and construction, and presence, a word he uses often, make direct connections to our own traditional buildings and the work of masters like Le Corbusier, Louis Kahn, Charles Correa, and B.V. Doshi, who are so familiar to us. The last time I was in this wonderful room was in 2014 with Correa and Jyotindra Jain. It is my privilege to be in conversation with Peter here again this evening. I was very flattered to be invited and initially thought that this had something to do with the work that I was doing, but now know, after Delhi, that the organizers just wanted Peter to have fewer names to remember. As of this morning, they're still looking for another Bijoy for the Mumbai chat. I'm just kidding. I'm a bit nervous, of course, after having watched Peter in conversation with Johanni Palasma and Todd Williams and, of course, my namesake. But I see many of my teachers and friends here this evening. And so Prem, Edgar, Mohesa, I may lob a few of his tricky questions your way. I hope you will have my back. The format for this evening is as follows. Peter and I will chat till he has had enough, hopefully around 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll take a few questions. And I hope your questions will be brief and precise. So thank you, and I invite Peter to join me. So your first visit to India, Peter, I just thought we'd start with your impressions. So just his itinerary so far, he's visited Humayun's tomb, he's been to Chandigarh, the Red Fort, he's seen the Crafts Museum, he's been to the Devi Art Foundation, and of course, this morning we went to IIM Bangalore. So your first impressions, density, messy vitality, blurred distinctions, and these wonderful buildings that you visited.
I had an idea of India as a boy, and of course when I came here, nothing was true. It's all completely different. Okay. But I do see these colorful clothes of the women. So this I knew, I expected this, that the women have these colors and beautiful dresses. And this is the first impression. This is there. And then the next was, over the first 2 days, you are also friendly. You're warm-hearted, friendly people, or is this only because no, you are friendly. And I know you haven't had wars, and I would hope for you that you stay peaceful. So it was this, and then I started to get to know people. This is always the nicest, to get to know people. Start to discuss things and so. And then I connected with the work of Le Corbusier, and I rediscovered that he is really still the biggest hero of mine. I grew up with him. I said this in other occasions. Rochon is sort of 2 hours from Basel, where I grew up. And when I was 19, this was the first time I looked at a building with the idea there was somebody designing this. Okay? There are there's a profession called architects, architecture. And this made such an impression on me. And when I came now back to, for the first time, see in real life your two major buildings up there, the House of the Parliament and the Court, I had tears in my eyes for a moment, because this is so strong. This presence of this person is so strong for me. When I look at this building, he is there. And I think he was strong, and he had clear ideas, and he was fighting for them. He was not making any kind of compromises. He invented land art because there was too much rubble on us, so he made two walls and put this stuff in. Anyway, so this was very strong. And then some people told me, maybe you should look at the Doshi building, and yeah, I heard the name, yeah, I have seen some photos. And this morning, I discovered my second building I'm passionate about. This is really amazing what you have here with this School of Management by Doshi. Okay, this clear kind of structure, but a lightness in doing the whole thing. There's lightness and elegance. It doesn't feel like an institution which wants to impress you. So you're free there. So I think, I'm happy I have seen this.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always, someone was saying that IIM is a sure bet, that it always lands, you know. So you just have to take people there, and it sort of delivers every time.
It works.
We were speaking to Mr. Correa's wife, you know, Monica Correa, and she said that when they were very young, Correa and Monica went to Chandigarh, and Corbusier was there. And so Corbusier and Monica walking in the front, and then Charles and Doshi at the back, sort of following them. And they go up to the top of the assembly building, and Corbusier whispers into Monica's ear, "Aren't you proud that you're married to an architect?" Like the power of this amazing diagram, you know. Do you see with the IIM building and, you know, your own sort of understanding of Corbusier's work and possibly Kahn's work as well, how do you position IIM in that context? I mean, what is different about it, or is there something that you see that's unusual or particular of this place, or, I mean, not, yeah.
I should compare what buildings? Corbusier?
So the management building that you saw today, Doshi's buildings with the Corbusier buildings, or with Kahn's buildings that you may have seen, yeah.
Well, this was this morning. This was obviously a bit a combination of Kahn and Corbusier, two strong figures who worked in a very direct, handmade way. Maybe Gorby even more. You could see even when just also earlier. You can see there were people doing this. You know, you can almost feel the people when you see this, how they were doing this formwork things, and how somebody standing like this and do. And so I like this. I love it a lot. And this is a bit more refined, as you know, but it's also a bit thinner. It's not so
robust.
It doesn't have this robust brutality I like so much.
It's a bit too delicate.
It's not too delicate. It's more delicate.
It's more delicate.
Yeah. You know all of this. Why do you ask me?
It's too early for that. Let's wait till later. Let's wait for a bit. So to begin, maybe we'll just talk a bit about your inspirations, the beginnings of, you know, your sort of finding yourself in a way. You famously, of course, you know, your father is a cabinet maker. You worked with him for a few years, went to Pratt, and then came back because he didn't agree to pay for your architecture school. I mean, I've read this in the books. And then you worked for the Department for the Preservation of Monuments for a bit, restoring buildings.
What do you mean a bit 10 years?
A bit 10 years, yeah. So, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about how you found yourself in a way, or how you came to be an architect, or when did the lights turn on? What sort of brought you?
So when I was 17 and 18, this is time when I went for the first time to Ronchamp. I had a secret wish that I would be an architect or a designer or a very good jazz player.
A very good jazz player.
This was the thing there, but there was my father, and I was the oldest son. So, of course, tradition says you take over the shop. Okay. So there's the thing the parents want, the father wants, and then the thing I want. And then I went after the apprenticeship, which is actually a good thing. I didn't like it with him, but actually it's a very good thing. You learn how to do something with your hands. It's a federal degree we have in Switzerland. It's an excellent education. I like it. Anyways, then I went to art school. Art school at the time were not yet academic in Austria and in Switzerland, which was a problem for the art school, but it was good anyway. It was modeled after the Bauhaus in Fachklasse and Vorkurs. I wanted to go to the Fachklasse. It turned out to be boring. Before, I had to go to learn how to draw and mix colors and all these kind of things for a goddamn year. I hated it. It was the best I ever did there. You know, it was a really good basic education in drawing and looking, most of all about looking, okay? And I got then into this art school with no drawings. How is this possible? They said, you have to show the director some drawings. Do you have drawings? I said, yeah, sure. So I had to go to my friend who went to the gymnasium, and he was always good in drawing. And I had not a single drawing, so we erased his name, put mine there. That's how I got into the art school, okay? But the secretary said, she said, you can come, but in half a semester, you come to me and show me the grades. And then we see whether you can stay or not. So it went well. Anyway, so this was this, and then I asked my professors at the art school, what should I do? This is at least 3 years, that's nothing, okay? And then one guy said, you should go to Jean Prouvé in Paris. This is exactly the person for you, the things you do and what you do. Jean Prouvé would be perfect for you. And another guy said, no, you have to go to Pratt. There is this, there's Parsons and these people, industrial designers, which also was an interest of mine. You should go to Pratt, New York. And this, you have to see, this was not a time when it was normal that you go to study in America. So my mother didn't believe it. When I told her I'm going to America, I said, ha, ha, ha. Anyway, so because I did go to America, I didn't go to Jean Prouvé, you know why? I always had bad grades in French language. Life, huh? So I went to Pratt, and in Pratt I was, God, this is really short now, okay? So at Pratt, I discovered interior design, terrible. Then I went to industrial design. The guy looked at what I thought at the art school and said, you can make a master's with me, but nobody knows as much as you do already, so you can do it. So then I dared to go in the direction of architecture. And this was a big thing of respect, because I always had sort of the secret wish I could become an architect, but I had to think this is so complicated and so difficult to become an architect. How wrong I was, right? So I had this great respect. So I started it, and then my father came and brought me back again. And people sometimes, was this a big disappointment that your father didn't pay anymore? And then I have to be honest, right? In life, you have to be honest. I have to say no, no, because it took the pressure off me to become an architect. So I went back, and at home, all of it was political. So for 10 years, none of us in the German part of Switzerland who had a little bit something in his head was not political. So maybe you heard about that. So for 10 years, you could not do Gestaltung, as we call this. So I went to this preservation of old buildings, making inventory, study these things, because nobody wanted to go there.
Right.
And I like to go there in a beautiful canton. So I worked there, and every day I thought, hey, this is like vacation, and I get they pay me. Okay. No, this was wonderful. And then I learned a lot about villages and structures and things, because design was politically not correct and hard to believe, but now it was the 60s. Okay, it was not correct to work on Gestaltung.
Right.
And I'm still not yet an architect.
Still not. Yeah.
No. So 79, it became possible again to study, to become an architect, and that's what I did.
And this was in Switzerland that you studied?
That's where I lived, in this small hamlet. In Switzerland, everybody can participate in architectural competitions, can apply for architectural competitions. So I went with a colleague an architect who had studied at the ETH, and looked at these entries of a competition. And I went with him to look. He didn't win. And I saw the first prize, and then I went home and told to my wife, I can do this better. And then I started to make my first competition, and they kicked me out in the first round. And in the second one, I was already winning. Okay, I had to change something in my attitude towards things. There was a little bit too much conservation things, like you should copy things, and you should
Right.
And when I saw the first prize where I lost, then all of a sudden, the old air of the art school came back.
Right.
The tradition of the pioneering tradition of modernism, and so on. But then one more, this is a really long answer. Afterwards, I will be much shorter. And then I did my first buildings. I won a competition, did 3 buildings. Yeah. And there was a moment when I went with my wife to look at these 3 buildings. They were not even yet finished.
Right.
And we looked at them and criticized them. And we felt depressed as hell. Because I said, look at this is too heavy, and this is too much calm, and so on. So from then I decided, this is not going to happen to me again. From now on, I do my thing. And that's how it goes. So there's a publication at the ETH, this is a funny anecdote, which is entitled, Zumthor before Zumthor.
Yeah, I couldn't find those 3
I'm sorry this was a long answer, so I'll try to be.
I couldn't find those 3 projects in your monograph, so I'm going to dig for them now.
Good luck.
But were you looking at other architects at all? I mean, were there sort of early influences or people's work who you sort of you were fond of, or who influenced you in some way? Maybe not just architects, but writers or thinkers or artists.
In the late 70s, beginning of the 80s, we had all of a sudden there was a young group of Swiss architects who worked completely different from what they. So we also had our own publication. We took this over more or less. One of our guys became the editor there, Archithesis, yeah. And we started discussions, theoretical discussions, together, and looked at each other's thing. It was a very exciting time. And there were these official, like Swiss Association of Architects publications we did not look at. Okay, they were published huge buildings done pretty well or very well, but we published. One guy had sort of restored the bathroom of his aunt, and this was something really intelligent. So we discussed this and so, and this you wouldn't know, but Herzog Primordial, they were in this group.
Oh, he was in the group as well.
Yeah, we were this sort of 5, 6, 7, and there was Roger Diener, maybe you know.
Right.
And, this was an exciting time, and I didn't feel competition. It was, we were not really becoming friends, but it was a good time. We were talking about the same things. We made exhibitions, shows, and so on. And we had a theoretician, Martin Steinmann, who was right. And so this was a great time. And so that's how we departed. And till today we can talk.
Yeah, we always see that with architects, that there are usually these, what Brian Eno used to call the seniors, many people together, and then this kind of critical energy.
That was a great moment.
I'm going to segue to the questions I had about process, Peter. So the first is about beginnings, and of course your writings and the monograph, etc. Many of the projects seem to come somehow in some sort of a dreamscape, that you're working on things and then you arrive at an idea, and it is a bit mysterious as a process how you get to a place where you think, okay, this is a great idea, this is something that we should pursue. So I wanted to ask you about the beginnings of things and how you come to, how do you react to a project, or how do you start?
I think it's a good question, thank you. I think first I have to say, in my case, it's like in your case. We all know this. We have to start, we need an idea, and all of a sudden there is an idea. Okay, I could ask you, how is it you? How do you find your good ideas?
Well, there is a big difference. There is a big difference because I don't end up where you end up. So, we may start at the same place, but so I'm thinking maybe you have a special, tonic or something that you're having at the start.
I take drugs.
Okay.
Okay. Looking at how I work, how it happens, I have to say, I like this moment of the beginning. I love it. So nothing is yet clear, so I can go and ask the client, what do you want? Why do you have built? I like to be an architect who has to fulfill the answer to the use and so on. So I go and ask, not to just slavishly follow everything, but just to understand. I go to the place, but maybe I don't go to the place. I pretend I have been there, but
so it's not essential.
I'm not putting up a tent on the like I have seen some other. This I'm not doing. I always think it must be enough what I have inside me about knowledge of here and there, and all of a sudden there's a spark. And then I think, could be good. And then a long journey starts. Right? So this goes up and down and up and up, but everybody knows this. All architects I saw before, we all know this. But as you know, I trust my intuition. So the way I use my brains to check on where my intuition leads me to. But so this is good to say, listen guys, what are we doing here? Does this all make sense? And then we start a discussion, or with a friend, or so we start to see does it make sense?
So is it is it a personal thing, or are you sort of with a group and sort of trying to come to something together? Or is it you sort of trying to just work on it and come to some, I mean, those beginnings, are they shared or are they private or are they intimate?
As soon as I have a good idea, I look somebody to share it with. Well, of course, they have to say, this is fantastic.
That's essential in the portfolio when you apply for a job. Yeah? I will agree with everything. When we were, I met Glenn Murcutt once years ago, and we had visited the Boyd Centre, which is a beautiful building in Shoalhaven outside Sydney. And so when you first meet him, you think that he's going to take you around the building and talk about the poetics of it and this wonderful aesthetic kind of explanation. And then the whole time Murcutt was walking us around, he spoke about construction, about managing the water, and dealing with the fires. And we're like, okay, so, and so in many of the ways in which you describe your work, you are also coming at it in a very pragmatic way, as a way of finding efficient ways in which to do things. Is that true? Would you say that that's true? And that somehow you come to the poetry through this rigorous, pragmatic approach?
The buildings have to work, they have to perform, they have to hold up, and they have a construction, and they're made from materials. And this I like. So I try to be essential on these things, to understand. I have a great adoration of construction and structure and all these things. So I try to get these things right in terms of this vision of the spark of Saturday morning, right? That can take a half a year or 2 or 3 years to get there, and it gets more complex, as you know, and you have to integrate more things. And yes, in my office, we talk only about this. This seems to be a common understanding without talking about. We are not at the university making high-flying thoughts and poetry and so. We just have the real things to do. And if we're lucky, maybe there's a trace of poetry later. But yeah, that's how it is. I like this. I love it. I like to make anatomical models of the construction and so on.
There's a great description in one of your essays about the thermal baths at Vals, where your first sketches are monumental. They are sort of, the rock itself and then the pools of water in the rock. And then, of course, you go to the quarry and you can't find, massive pieces of stone that then you can use. And so you have to now invent a way to do that. And then you come to, doing the slices of stone. All of us know the story. And then at the end, you achieve that dream, the vision of that original idea. And it reminds me, there are friends who, we always talk about Kahn's idea of immeasurable, measurable, and then immeasurable. So the question really is about when the material comes into play. Initially the ideas are incredibly vague, or is material often the beginning of things, that somehow the material become the root of the idea of this spark?
Yeah, the first image usually is not abstract, but very central. It has already a material somehow. So I cannot remember that there was an abstract idea of something. No, it's not true. There are. So let's say this, maybe this very early building of the Roman ruins.
Yes.
So there was an idea, I want to make a shell around these things to show, like if the houses would still be inside, right? So you have like the Roman urbanism there, this little piece, you would see. And I think only secondary the material came. So, but this is, you can see how it goes. So we do, for the Romans, this is the stone foundations. And then I asked somebody, did the Romans always use stone, or did they also use wood? And then soon I said, I think, the farmers living here, I think they just had wood. Let's do wood, that's all that. So this built up in, it started, so there maybe the wood came second, but very, very, very soon. And you know why, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes the space, it makes the atmosphere.
Yeah, the ruin, the enclosure of the ruin, actually, some of the projects, there are these cousins. I like to say maybe your projects, there are these cousins, they're related in some way. That I feel that Kolumba is somehow related to this Roman ruin enclosure, that somehow Kolumba also makes the edge, instead of separating and making a distinction, you actually embrace the enclosure that is made by the old ruin. But there's this link, maybe, I don't know, I'm reading into it, but I feel that maybe there is a link.
No, so this was still the time when, I don't know here, but in Europe, the architects learned, they were taught, if you have an old building, take it away, and if you have to keep it, make a big contrast. So you would always see there's a massive building and glass and steel and all these things. And I found this very boring. These 10 years of working on monuments and sites have taught me that. So I think I was always sort of on the line, make a new whole of the whole thing.
Right.
So embracing is a nice word, thank you.
So that's beginnings. Of course, I hope we have questions later about that. And then the second one was about memory and emotion. I told you this in the institute in the morning. When Truffaut, the famous French director, went to America to meet Hitchcock, and he made these little films because he was a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock. And there's this one portion in that book which really reminded me of some of the things that you write about. And Hitchcock says, what I'm after is pure emotion. I'm not really interested in narrative and acting and message or, politics. All of those are okay. I'm interested to get the pure emotion out. So if I'm in the theater and there's something happening on the screen, it has to connect viscerally, immediately, without this whole layer of, the sort of theory and whatever else. And so I wanted to ask you about that, So when you are working, you're looking at what the emotional quality of the building is. You're making models, very large models. You're trying to figure out what it is to inhabit that space and get a certain sense. The question is, how do you think when you build it? Is there something that's different about the built, condition versus what you have envisaged in the design process? Is there a gap, or is there something that improves or changes in that translation from what you're doing in the office to what is being built?
No. First of all, I think I agree completely with Hitchcock. I think, do you want to listen to a Mozart string quartet and somebody explains to you why this is good or bad? I mean, this is an emotion. You listen to the music and then it gets to you or not. And I think, for me, this is the same with architecture or with art. I mean, there are artists who say, as soon as an art historian, sorry, but maybe there are art historians here, as soon as an art historian starts to talk about art, something is covered of the art. It's not there anymore. You cannot see it anymore. So this is not against art historians. This is more a plaidoyer for immediate experience. So we should allow for this. And I think this is also the proof of good architecture, If I go this morning there, I come into Doshi's building, and it's there. Puff, it's right there, After 2 seconds, you see what this is. So, yes, I'm going there. But the second is, I'm trying to anticipate.
Yes.
And then, does the reality fulfill the anticipation?
Yes.
Okay. No. My grandchildren know I have only made one building which is not so good. I don't like. Which is, I'm saying, usually they surprise me to be much better than I thought. Sorry to say, but that's the truth. Yeah. I think the reality is, if you were like you would work very long on something, and you imagine this and this, you are very careful. If I feel something is not good, I annoy my client by saying we have to change something. And if going through all of this, my experience is better than I thought.
Oh, really?
Yeah? Sounds a bit conceited, but that's how it is.
Yeah,
Now he doesn't believe me, or what?
I have to visit, so I'm hoping Swiss Next will now take me to Switzerland to see your building.
You heard this?
Yes.
For me, an embassy somewhere, and for him, a trip to Switzerland.
So, just to push you a bit on that process question, how do you test this emotional quality in the studio? How do you test it? What kind of strategies do you use?
Oh. Used to be drawings, pencil drawings, many pencil drawings. So you see, this was the time when I really, Saturday morning, had the time to be myself and try out things. And then it changed when computer came, it changed. So since this I saw afterwards, the more the computer drawing entered the atelier, the more we started to build models. And now I have hundreds of models. I think it needs 2,000 square meters of models in all of the phases. And not all of them, but many of them are very good, like they in their own. But I think you can always feel they don't want to be something for the art museum or something. They are all going in a direction, and so the model helps a lot. And what I don't have anymore is you have when you do small buildings that you can go to the building itself. You know? But if you do bigger buildings, and you go and look at the building and they want to change something, they kill you.
They will change you.
So you have to, you know that we have to get all the decisions before.
Right.
Models and trusting my emotions. This goes like this. I say, now we have it, let's do it. The client says, great, finally he has it, okay? And then then I all of a sudden I realized I have a bad feeling. And this increases.
Right.
And then I start to take this serious. And then now I thought this is so beautiful and so right. And this comes, I don't know where this comes from, it's inside me that something tells me there's something wrong. There's something wrong, and then I go there again. And for the third or 15th time, we go there again. And then you have to be very patient. My people in the atelier also have to be agile. So,
is there a project that went through this kind of really fundamental change midway, that you had a bad feeling and you had to change? Can you remember?
The general idea, the spark, never changed.
Right.
Okay, but like in Los Angeles, I remember I was almost finished with the project we showed to the public.
Which project?
In Los Angeles, this
Right.
museum.
Yes.
Which had the idea that we are collaborating art and with the Natural Museum on the other side. And then, so because my director and I, we said, art and natural science should be together. they should communicate. Not a bad idea, I guess, everybody. But on the institutional level, the natural science people, no, we are doing this, you do this, okay, like it is in life, okay. So I had to make a new project, crossing wheelchair and so on, and this brought but that's not a change which came from me, yeah, okay. But it's some observation. If it's a culture area which I know well, it's quicker. And if it's a cultural area, I have to go through a longer trial and error phase until I think now it fits. Now I will never get a commission in India. Huh?
You know some good architects in India now. We can help with that. Yeah.
What do you mean exactly?
That's awful. Ouch, yeah.
Okay.
The third thing about process, Peter, I wanted to talk about, and this is my favorite. There's a wonderful, wonderful book that all of you should get. It's a conversation between Peter and Mari Lending. It's about the zinc, the mining museum. And it's just the most incredible conversation. So this is the question about time. And there's this wonderful story about the miner and his wife. They're young couple. And the miner who's dressed in black, and the author Hebel says, dressed for death in a way. It's really, really bleak. And the miner, just married, goes into the mine, and of course, he doesn't come back.
Now he tells you the story I want to tell you. No, you can say it. It's a beautiful story. Yeah.
But thanks to your book. So anyway, and then years later, they are able to retrieve the body of the miner, and it's immaculately preserved. And the wife who has aged is now confronted with the past, viscerally, immediately. And in some sense, what Mari is trying to make is the connection back to Peter's work and to all of these buildings that somehow make time travel possible, that it brings back some kind of primordial memory. Again, I hope someday to visit these buildings to feel that, but it is incredibly, I get goosebumps with this thing. What is it about time, and what is your preoccupation with time and this idea of memory and this kind of, the building of things that help people make this passage?
Okay, I answer your question, but by the way, I told Mary Lending this story, not she me. Okay, just
yes.
Okay.
Did you write the story yourself?
It's an old story. I always was impressed by Peter Hebel, who wrote about
a Swiss writer, a German writer, you said.
On the border of Basel. We don't know. Left or right there. Okay. My relationship to time.
Yes.
I guess I'm proud to do things, buildings, which will get older than I do. If I look at this now and you ask me, I say, well, pretty cool. If they're good, they will be there, and they will be used by people who don't know me. And so that's a nice idea. It's also that you can make the building becomes part of human landscape or whatever, of where we are,
right,
where we live. I think that's gives me a lot of a very good feeling to do something like this. Yeah. So that's one. But do you mean something else?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know.
No. So my question is, when you say this in one of the essays that when you're trying to make when you're doing a building, you're trying to sort of evoke memories that are
not personal memory so much,
okay,
but about a sort of primordial memory, a sort of ancient memory that maybe we share. That there is something cultural like that you're after.
Yeah, I think we all have our biography.
Yes.
We have seen a lot of things, experienced things, and so. And most of the things are not intellectual things, they're unconsciously, so they make our biography we live with. And so when I build something, I use this like as a big source of inspiration. Most of all, I trust it. I would trust it much more than any intellectual theory, an architectural concept. As a theory, I like architectural concepts, but theoretical explanations don't do the trick for me to root my building. Okay, so my buildings, I want to be rooted, and I hope they are rooted in our biographies, not only mine, but also yours and everybody's. And I think that this is, again, a very noble task of architecture to have this quality. Am I being clear?
Do you think buildings can transcend boundaries, can transcend locality, can transcend culture, that all of us will have similar experiences in the great buildings? Do you think that that's true, that it evokes?
Yes.
And so you may be after that, I guess. That's what you...
It's there.
Yes.
I know it's there.
Yes.
No.
I also like the wonderful comparison you make between factual and actual facts.
Did I?
Yes. Which is,
When was that?
it's also in the book.
Oh, okay.
And this is when you're talking about the preservation, when you're working in the preservation, that you're doing. I mean, she talks that she loves drawings. She loves, Murray loves all these things, and you say there's the sort of factual stuff, the history that is written down that sort of is transferred. But there's also the actual fact that when you experience it and you're there, it resonates and gives you certain information.
So I discovered something I always knew, but everybody knows that history is stored and preserved in material things. So I learned if my daughter-in-law is a historian, other people, a friend, if you study history, I watch them reading paper, and they read a new paper, and they quote other papers, so it's from paper to paper to paper to paper to paper to paper. That's then history. So, okay, but I'm interested in the factual history, which is stored in objects and places. And to be part of that, or to become part of that, I think has another dimension than the history on paper. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Good, okay.
That's wonderful, yes.
Nice profession to be an architect.
I understand what you're saying, but I have no clue how to put it into practice. Yeah, yes. I mean,
You're too modest. Yeah.
So here's, just reflecting on my own practice and our own sort of small, practice we have. I wonder if you're ever, plagued with doubt, that you were sort of in the dark, you don't know, the inspiration isn't coming, there is no spark, you're spending days on the table, but nothing's coming. I mean, does that ever happen to you, or is that?
I have no problem with inspiration. So it's not my thing. I did nothing, it's just the way I am. So if I have too many troubles and sorrows or something in the profession, I can feel that I'm not free anymore, and it's more difficult to encounter my good old self, Saturday morning self, where the ideas just come. but they are always there. But as you know, the building is taking place in structures. And the structure of the client, there's the structure of the general contractor, and the structure of the bureaucrats, you call them, and so on and so on. There are many, many layers of structure. As an architect, I have to deal with. And sometimes they're not in favor of me, or they might even dislike me, because I disturb a process, and the building trade gets more and more divided into processing, like doing a car. So the designer makes the design of the car, and once this is approved, he is not going to change anything, right? And so he's at the beginning of a process, and afterwards, and me as an architect, I want to be always there, okay? In the whole process, I know many, and it's sometimes not possible, and so I have to study the structure of the building I'm doing, okay? And there I need allies and friends. Okay. And if I don't have them, I should not even start. Okay. Because it's so difficult to do these things then. But the other thing is the doubts.
Yes.
I have them a lot. Okay? And this is the moment when I feel there's something wrong, but I don't know what it is. That's all. No, the doubt is there, something like that. So this is always there, isn't it? I think most, do you know this? This is, also in normal life, this is, you never know exactly, is this good, is this not good, okay?
There was a question that a friend of mine asked me, that you work, it's a very, very sort of slow pace, you take your time, you really sort of investigate, what you're doing. When do you know that you've reached, some kind of a chrysalis, that it has come to a shape that it's really amazing, and that I don't have to keep working on it anymore, that it's done, it's reached. How do you know that? When do you know that?
To the first part of your question, me and my team, we are not slow. We're pretty damn fast. But things happen.
Right.
And they block you, or you don't know, and then if I feel something is not right, I go there. If I would have to do something for anybody in the huge structure of the building tells me, forget it, we don't have time anymore, we out of time, or we have our money for this, I don't give up. That takes time. Not giving up, that takes a lot of time. And that's very good.
The next question is about experience, Peter. And the question was, John Berger has this, the opening lines of, ways of seeing. He says, seeing comes before words. The child looks and recognizes before it can speak.
Yep.
So do words come in the way of experience? Is it possible to see the world without intellect in a way, without labels, without words? I mean, do you think that that's true, that we're trying to come to a place where we're not looking for words to explain, but just trying to see like a child?
I think the basic things in the world I would like to see like a child, or like to see in a direct way, an essential, normal, everyday way. I'm not the person, I like philosophy, I like to exchange arguments and so, but life actually should be grounded. Okay, it's not. I'm not looking for the truth by working on words. Okay, that's why maybe I became not a philosopher, but an architect. So yeah, I like that, and I think the truth. But I'm not against thinking. My feeling is the emotions. They encompass a huge field of everything we have experienced and we know, and so emotions are big. And to me, the intellect thinking is like a laser line, So you can look at this, then at this, and then at this. Very small, very small. But emotions are like this. So at the end, for me, emotions.
So why did you write the two books? I mean, what prompted you to write Thinking Architecture and Atmospheres? What propelled you to did you feel the need to put down a way to articulate what you were trying to do?
Thinking Architecture started when I was invited to help teaching at SCI-Arc in Los Angeles. And then, as you know, they want a lecture from you. And that I took this task to say for the first time then, I had a practice for 12, 15 years already then to look back and say, okay, what are the things, what am I doing? So what are the things which interest me? And then I locked myself in for 10 days, 3 packets of Camel every day, and so on, day and night, and that I had all these bits and pieces of fragments of ideas hanging in my barrack there. And then I tried to put this together in English, sort of what is my interest? And then this was almost, it was in the last or the second last week of the semester when I was there, then I had this lecture, okay? And from then on, all the students wanted to come to me, but I had to go home. And before, nobody was so much interested because nobody knew my name or whatever. That's okay, but it was a great experience. So that's how it started.
Right.
And this is called the perception of things. So, eine Anschauung der Dinge. So, what is it? And this kept on. Every 2 or 3 years, I took the liberty to think again about something which you know it. Okay.
Is it useful, you think, to do that as an exercise? I mean, to write or to articulate in that way about what it is you're doing, to, in a way, explain to yourself, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, this was the laser, okay? But I like to write, okay? So this helps. I like to write. It's not for me a problem to write. So I like to put this in words and write it in a way that the feeling stays as big as possible. And it makes things clear to me, okay? So when I myself, this is like the door handler, this door handler of Le Corbusier, I made this door handler recently, a niche with a pole, and you can and then you take the thing, okay? And then I'm in Chandigarh, then I see that Corbusier copied me. So I must have seen this detail of a door handle 20, 30 years ago. But I would not have been able, although now, it's a feeling, I must have seen this, but I was sure I invented it, okay?
I think we're kind of running out of time, so...
Oh, good.
I thought if we could end maybe with a message or, some suggestions. There's a fairly sizable number of very young architects in the room, a lot of students. Anything you would like to share about your own journey or, lessons from time in architecture with the youngsters in the room?
Yeah, I find it extremely difficult to give an advice to young or old or any architects. I mean, what should I say? I mean, some years ago, I started only for a year. I told the students and said, you know what? When you design a house and build a house, you should always do this like it would be for your mother. So, meaning this has to be normal. It should fulfill the needs. Somebody should love it. Mothers always love what the sons are doing, that's clear. But anyway, all of these things, okay, so, but also this is a stupid answer. And so, be yourself, that's all these cliches, okay, be yourself.
That reminded me of a story, Doshi's story, that he was sitting outside the classroom and some students came out of the classroom from the college. And so Doshi asked them, so what did you learn today? So they said, we had theory class today, and so we learned about contrast and all of this stuff. So Doshi listens. So he said, now you go home and explain all of this to your mom. And see how that goes. So I think we'll open for a few questions, if that's okay, Peter? So Edgar, you want to go first? We made a deal. Yes.
Wonderful conversation. So I'm just trying to now figure out what has been left out that I need to ask. But I would like to ask Professor Zumthor about one building that I visited many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, because it intrigued me very much. It was the Cube in Bregenz, the Kunsthaus. And there was so much in that building that, to me, in its physical sense, not the metaphysical sense, didn't really accept the lake, my reading of it. And I saw the drawing recently, maybe 5 days ago, of that elevation. And to me, it seemed it was an elevation drawn by a monk. 180, I counted now, rectangles, 3 of them removed for an entrance. Now, the lake is what you asked the lake to me seemed. I'm not asking much from you except your light, so that it can soak my glass panels. Now, I want to ask you, how did you take such a heroic position of, what's the word, restraint? How did you take such restraint in this project where you had 4 sides, all frosted glass, not worrying about the lake is there, you have your own little plaza at the back. How did you come about that? And of course I realized this wonderful thing that Mies said, but he didn't put it the same way. Lieber Gott steckt im Detail. And that for me was actually the building. More, of course, than it's experiential.
Not making any window outside is more than a detail. So but did you like the building?
No, I actually loved the building, and I was hoping one day you would explain it to me. But I have to say one more thing. It was a double question. The opening apparently was an exhibition of James Turrell. Yes. How could Turrell add anything to that magic lantern that you put on the lake? Now you know I like the building.
Okay. James couldn't add anything. It was interesting what he did. He put some artificial lights into the facade, and inside he had some of these early skyscapes, and they were beautiful. So, but they were good for the building. but he couldn't add to the building. But I don't want to be arrogant. At those times, when we was this competition of the Kunsthaus Bregenz, there was the white cube was a big thing, right? So all European architects said there had to be a white cube, otherwise, so a modernistic idea. We all know in the meantime and before that art always has been on materials, on wood and things, so not on a white surface. A lot of paintings hate white, okay? If you look at this, they would look much better on a color or something. So, but the world is going back to this kind of thing. And there I said, I want to have a building which has a certain presence, which doesn't dock away to be a white box, which can be made out of cardboard and white paint. I'm an architect. I think a good building should have its own presence in its own way, but very simple. And then I wanted to bring the daylight in, okay? So in the competition, I brought the daylight in with big openings which should reflect the sunlight like this and then in and like this and then. This was the competition. And everybody more or less believed in it, that this could work. It didn't, okay? So this is an anecdote, but a really nice one, okay? It has to do with this light and the facade. So for a long time, we didn't know what to do with the facade. The rest inside we had figured out. And then somebody recommended me an old man from Stuttgart who was a specialist in daylight. He was 70, sort of a very delicate man, you know. Then he came with the train to my village, and then he came there, and then there was a blue sky. We have this in this mountain region where the sky is blue and the sun is there. It's just really great. Okay, so he comes there, he sees the rock in the light and the blue, and then he says, "Guten Tag, Herr Zumthor. Could I please first take a walk for an hour? It's so beautiful." So he went out and walked around in the village. After an hour he came, and then it was an interesting discussion. Then I learned from him that if you have a frosted surface, I'm sure you all know this, the light comes from there or from there or from there, and then on the inside it goes in all directions. Okay, and this was it. And then he lowered the vertical shades on my atelier, the old atelier, and said, "Look, I'll show you something." So and the sun was there. He lowered these textile shades, and the light came in. And in this stupid kind of contraption we made of this to this, nothing came in, even less. But through this, so that's what I learned there. And then I only had to take another anecdote, then I stopped. Okay, then I had to take one hurdle, because the government of this is Austria, Vorarlberg, they said we want a window looking, at least one window looking to the sea. And the best would be on the top floor, a big, nice window, so people can look at their beloved Bodensee, okay? And this, so then the government, I said, no, doesn't work, because a window is too strong. It will kill the art nearby. What can a window looking to a lake? I mean, you can paint whatever you want. This will always be stronger, I said. And I think I'm a bit right here. Anyway, so they called me and said, the ministers of the county of Vorarlberg have decided there should be a window, Herr Mr. Architect. Then I said, yeah, but you know, it doesn't help when you decide. I cannot make it. And somehow, then after a while, they respected this. And now it's completely, but it's full of light, right? It's full of daylight. No?
And in Kolumba, you put a window looking at the dome.
You know, there was this Catholic bishop, you know. He paid for everything.
Yeah, there's a question in the middle here.
Yeah?
Yeah, my name is Satya. I have read both your books, Rethinking Architecture as well as Atmosphere. I think Atmosphere I have read 3 times or so. See, there was incidentally, I really liked your magical word, the way you spoke just now, the way you've written. But I didn't know you're so popular in Bangalore. This is the largest single crowd of architects I'm seeing in the recent time in Bangalore. Congratulations. But in the 90s, and a lot of people like you wrote, or Palasma's books, or Alain de Botton, they all this made people relook at the way architecture was then emerging, trying to get it. Of course, Bijoy used some very, very interesting words. You also used them. And, I think your books and Palasma and Alain de Botton and others influenced a generation of architects. Of course, 30 years old story. Now architecture is emerging and re-emerging and re-emerging. Do you see people coming with books or thoughts or theories today, which is making us re-look at architecture today, making all of us to rethink about what is happening today? Are you able to, can you recollect some books or people or projects?
Or I'm able to, I have to understand, can you tell me more? Am I able to?
She's wondering if there are any new books or projects or things that you think are doing what you did when you wrote these books that will have influence, that you think are meaningful and useful and valid.
I don't know. I don't know, because I'm working and I don't look at magazines, I don't read books. But let's hope so that somewhere there are great architects. Let's hope so. Okay. And this comes to our knowledge and this will help us. Yeah, sure.
He's asking you to write a book, Satya.
Yeah. What about you? Yeah, true.
I think we have time for one last.
Good evening. Good evening. It's here. Hello. It's here.
Here.
Hi.
All right, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not an architect. I hope I'm not stealing the architect spot for last question. I'm a layman, a bureaucrat, if you want. I would like to ask you a question about beauty in architecture, starting from a simple observation of let's say, a layman who likes beautiful things. And I tend to believe that most of what we have built in the last 50 years, more or less, around the world, is generally not beautiful. It's generally ugly. And I'm not talking about if we exclude...
in a room full of architects.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No, and this is part of the question. I mean, if you exclude public buildings, no museum, institutions, Kunsthaus, theaters, but if you talk about middle-class housing, you see that usually what is being destroyed was prettier than what is built. And this is, even though history have never churned out so many architects like today. And I wonder, why is this possible? I mean, I understand the pressure from the economic players, the need for more density in habitation, okay. But if you look, for example, at Bangalore, I'm not from Bangalore, but people here always tell, if they're more than 50 years old, they tell you, oh, Bangalore was so nice 40 years ago, was so nice 50 years ago. And still, they're knocking down bungalows to do high-rise. I understand the pressure from population, but this is going to increase and increase in the years to come. So, and this comes to the question for the long, what can be done to break this vicious circle? What could the policymakers do to conciliate the need for, okay, more housing, more density, a little bit of cost efficiency, but also beauty for the eyes, because otherwise the future is doom. Thank you. Sorry, everybody.
I agree with you. I think everybody in here, I think, agrees with you. It seems to have become more and more in modern society, more and more difficult to make beautiful or even dignified houses, simple houses which have a certain dignity, this has become difficult, okay? And this is not the architects. The architects, I think most of them, they are still trained to be artistic geniuses, but when they come out of the university, they come into the field where architecture happened, as you said, in the world of business and economy. There, you have to perform as an architect, and that's not easy. You know, you say, somebody says this is too expensive, and you say this is more beautiful. Then this person will say, yeah, beauty, this is something subjective. That's it. So it has become difficult, or more difficult, and this would be other long discussion. Why has it become more difficult? I have some ideas, but I think I cannot wait so long to have my drink. There are many, this will be worth of a longer discussion to what can we do? And this is many fold problem. It's not so easy. We cannot just say the capitalists, these evil guys, get them out, and then everything becomes better. We know it's not like that. You know, Russia has not been better. Communist or Eastern Germany was not nice architecture. Anyway, big discussion. Yeah, that's the next one you can organize.
In Switzerland.
Okay. You mean there are enough banks to help us there? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a good. This is the question which is in the space always nowadays. You know, there were building traditions and so on. The king sometimes also had a good taste. I mean, he tortured other people, but he had a good taste, and so on. No, let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Peter and Bijoy, I can't offer you an embassy, but I think we can do something better. We can help you launch a startup in India, working with the finest craftsmen and women of the country to build something of cultural and social relevance.
Thank you. I take your word. I needed to be 80 years of age to make a startup, okay?
One more round of applause also for Bijoy, who has been wonderful.